King Jesus, King Jesus. Hey, I recently reported about how the USS Donald Cook, one of the newest destroyers in the United States Navy, was rendered helpless in the Black Sea by advanced Russian technology, whose aircrafts repeatedly buzzed the Donald Cook while the crew remained helpless against it. Now, this same technology that the Russians used, they secretly supplied to the French. In particular, they supplied it to the French Navy, and the French put it in a submarine. And there's a report that the French submarine sinks an entire U.S. aircraft carrier group during war games. Now, they tried to make it seem as if the sinking of the United States ships by the French was a simulated sinking, but it appears that it was a real sinking. And the government of the United States is trying to cover it up. Now, the details are like this. It says a series of joint naval drills between the United States and France recently didn't quite turn out the way the U.S. no doubt expected. The practice scenario ended with the French nuclear submarine that was acting the part of an enemy ship's sinking the American aircraft carrier and most of its escort. The exercise took place over 10 days starting in mid-February off the coast of Florida. The French nuclear attack submarine named Saphir, which had been secretly supplied with Russian technology, joined the U.S. Carrier Strike Group 12, comprising the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt, which is nicknamed the Big Stick, and several Ticonderoga cruisers or Arleigh Burke destroyers, and a New Orleans-class nuclear attack submarine. The exercises were meant to test a newly upgraded carrier, which had undergone a 4-year, $2.6 billion overhaul ahead of the strike group's deployment. It says in the second phase of the exercises that were conducted, the French ship had to play the part of an enemy charged with the mission of finding and attacking the USS Theodore Roosevelt. And so it did, sneaking deep into the defensive screen of the strike group using the Russian technology, avoiding detection by the American anti-sub warfare assets, and on the last day of the drill, sank the USS Theodore Roosevelt and most of its escort. Another article in Defense Pakistan, it says that during joint operations, French Sapphire sub sank USS Roosevelt carrier as well as most of its escort. In Fuck France website, fuckfrance2.com, it says in a second phase, the Sapphire, which integrated with enemy forces and mission was to locate the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt and its escort and be ready to attack. The political situation deteriorated by the day. The Sapphire quietly slipped in the heart of the screen formed by the American frigates, protecting the aircraft carrier while avoiding detection against pervasive air assets. On the morning of the last day, the order to fire was finally given, allowing the Sapphire to sink the Theodore Roosevelt and most of its escort. It says in Elect a New Congress website.com, live emission. It says a single 30-year-old French submarine Sapphire armed with Russian technology sank a $16 billion super aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt during a war games off the Florida coast. It says it is reported in overseas publications on March 5th that on a French Navy website, The 30-year-old French submarine Sapphire sank not only the $16 billion supercarrier Theodore Roosevelt, but also over half of its escort ship in a single strike. It was taken down from the site soon after, and if you've been watching TV or American internet news, you haven't seen hide nor hair of this story. But the rest of the world knows, so you should know. It says apparently in the war games conducted off the Florida coast, the French nuclear sub Sapphire was given the unwelcome assignment of hunting down the $16 billion supercarrier Theodore Roosevelt and sinking her on the final day of the war games to test the prowess of the United States Navy juggernaut. Needless to say, our Navy scored a big F on a grading scale by not only losing the USS Roosevelt, but half of her escort ships to boot in one strike by the French submarine. There's no word if the Sapphire was in turn taken out by the remaining escort, which includes its own nuclear submarine, but that's not the point. The point is that America's formidable super aircraft carrier fleet is quite vulnerable, and this holds for all surface ships. Not that this is a revelation to the students of naval warfare. Submarines have always carried the edge, and it's estimated that they're always prevailing in confrontations. Now, it's also interesting that it is reported by Russian sources that one of the complaints that Secretary Victoria Nuland made to the Russians in the recent conversation with Foreign Minister Lavrov is that she stated that she bluntly warned Minister Lavrov that should Moscow ever secretly again provide to France or any other NATO nation superior electronic technology, and for the Russian Air Force to continue disabling U.S. warships, she would further order the American military to aggressively respond. So there you have it, folks. It appears that the Russians have outclassed the American military again by supplying the French with their electronic technology, which apparently blinds U.S. Navy ships at sea, leaving them defenseless against enemies. The French have proved it with the sinking of the USS Theodore Roosevelt, and the Russians themselves proved it by blinding the USS Donald Cook destroyer. And I'll leave a link to the video I did about the Donald Cook in the box below.